Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Chicago Med proves Archer and Lennox are more alike than Archer would like to admit. Chicago Med delivered a powerful Archer episode, and it was about time. This is a character with layers, but we only tend to get to see the gruff side of him. While that was certainly part of the case during the new episode, we also saw that he doesn't necessarily want to be this way. Throughout the book of Archer, everything was told from his point of view. He was there in every scene, as he ran the emergency department while Lennox took a personal day. That personal day for Lennox was still spent in the hospital though, as it turned out that she needed to sit by the bed of a terminally ill patient with no family. After the patient dies and another patient attacks people in the ED, Lennox and Archer get a moment to open up to each other. Well, Lennox opens up to Archer, showing us that the two are more alike than anyone would like to admit. We finally learn more about Lennox's family life. Both of her parents are dead, dying just hours apart, and no, it wasn't some freak accident. Her mom had a rare neurological disease that claimed her life, and then her dad took his own life hours later, leaving Lennox and her brother as orphans. Archer just listened as he stitched up the wound from the PCP guy in the ED, but afterward he asked why Lennox would open up to him. Well, Archer wouldn't offer her sympathy. She knew he would just listen, and that's something she needed. Something that she said stuck with him: cold, dead hearts have to stick together. Looking at the two characters, you wouldn't initially think that they are alike. Lennox is a bit of a sociopath, and she knows it. She doesn't really know how to connect with people, although it's clear that sometimes she does if she can see herself in the patient. Meanwhile, Archer chooses to distance himself from people, treating their wounds to give them a future that people he cared about haven't had the chance to have. While Archer doesn't open up to Lennox about his ex-wife's death, told to us at the start of Chicago Med Season 10, Episode 16, he does find someone to talk to. Asher joins him on the hospital roof after her surgery, and he finally decides that he has someone he can talk to. While he goes through all the shoulda, wolda, coldas, Asher gets him to stop, and she offers some cold, hard truths that he needed in that moment. It's time for Archer to change. If he doesn't change, then he's going to be left alone forever, and is that something that he really wants? Sure, he's gotten used to it, but how is it working out for him? It seems that hearing Lennox think that they are alike and Asher call him out, he realizes that he does need to change, and he doesn't have to do it alone. I know there are a lot of people who want to see Archer and Asher get together romantically, but their platonic relationship right now is everything they both need. They have an intimacy that a romantic relationship would destroy, and sometimes you just need the best friends in your life. The operating room lights flickered slightly as Dr. Daniel Charles watched Dr. Sam Abrams' skilled hands maneuver through a particularly challenging surgery. It was a tense moment, but as usual, the room was filled with a sense of confidence and authority, things that Dr. Matt Cooper often attributed to the work of Dr. Dean Archer, who paced nearby, his arms crossed, his mind constantly evaluating every situation. Despite the intensity of the operation, Archer's presence in the room seemed to have an unsettling quality. There was a coldness about him, a constant air of calculated detachment. And yet, as much as Archer tried to maintain that demeanor, something had been shifting in recent weeks, something that even he, the master of controlling his emotions, couldn't quite avoid. It was Dr. Billy Lennox who first noticed the change, though she would never have admitted it out loud, not in front of the team. Still, as much as she disliked the way Archer's abrasiveness often clashed with the department, she couldn't deny there was something about him that intrigued her. Not in the way most people found him prickly and hard to relate to, but in the way she saw the shadow of someone she might understand more than she liked. It all began when Lennox joined the trauma team and found herself dealing with a particularly chaotic shift. She had already become acquainted with the rigid standards of the job, but Archer had a way of setting her teeth on edge that most people didn't. His snide remarks, his quick dismissal of her opinions, and his unwillingness to allow anyone else to dictate the terms of patient care had made it impossible to warm to him. But over time, Lennox had noticed something peculiar. Despite Archer's cold exterior and refusal to let anyone in, there was a vulnerability hidden beneath that shell. He was just like her, someone who, despite their best efforts to stay disconnected, couldn't fully shield themselves from the messiness of human emotion. It was easy to overlook at first, but Lennox saw it during one of the most trying shifts of their careers. A young boy had been admitted after a brutal car accident, and Archer and Lennox were paired together to stabilize him. The boy's parents were hysterical, and Archer's usual hard-edged approach to crisis management had gone into overdrive. But something changed when the boy's heart stopped. Lennox was already on her feet, preparing to take over chest compressions, but Archer held her back with a gentle hand on her arm. It was subtle, but it was there. Lennox's eyes met his, and for a brief moment, she saw the same haunted look that had been present in her own eyes countless times. "You take over?" Archer had said, his voice low, almost a whisper. She nodded and moved forward, but not before catching the briefest glimpse of something that told her all she needed to know. Archer was no stranger to loss. He carried it, just like she did. Perhaps not in the same way, but in a way that made them both feel like they were walking on the edge of some unseen precipice. Later, after the surgery had been completed successfully, Lennox and Archer stood by the patient's bedside, watching him slowly come to. The tension in the room was palpable, but neither one of them spoke. They simply stood there, two people united by a shared understanding, even if neither of them was ready to admit it. Archer, as always, was the first to break the silence. "Don't make the mistake of thinking that this job will let you off easy," he said, his voice carrying an edge that only someone who had been in his shoes would understand. "You save one, but there will always be another one waiting for you." Lennox's gaze didn't waver, but she had an answer waiting, one that she had learned over the years but never vocalized. "I know," she replied quietly, looking down at the boy's slowly recovering form. "But you do it anyway, because it matters." There was a long pause, and for once, Archer didn't argue. Instead, he simply nodded and walked away, disappearing into the hallway. Lennox knew that the moment for him was already over. He would retreat back into his shell. The walls he had built so high that no one could truly get close. But she knew something had changed. Archer was no longer just the brash, stubborn trauma doctor. He was a man with scars, as deep and as painful as her own. Days passed, and Lennox continued to work alongside Archer, finding herself more attuned to the rhythms of his personality than she ever thought she would be. She started to notice the little things, the way his jaw tightened when the pressure was on, the way he didn't sleep well at night, the occasional flash of self-doubt that he quickly buried behind a mask of authority. But it wasn't just the personal struggles that Lennox began to recognize in him. It was the way they both seemed to approach medicine in the same way. Intense, calculated, with little room for error or sentimentality. It was that drive to save lives, no matter the cost. That constant need to be in control, to never show weakness, to never let the world see how fragile they both were underneath it all. And then there was the truth that neither of them had acknowledged aloud. Archer and Lennox both used their careers to mask the pain they carried. For Archer, it was the unresolved trauma from a past that had haunted him for years. For Lennox, it was the memory of a family lost, a relationship torn apart, and a future that never turned out the way she had hoped. Neither of them had the luxury of slowing down to process their grief, because to do so meant facing things they weren't ready to confront. It was in one of their late-night shifts, with the ER nearly empty, that Lennox finally broke the silence. "You know," she began as Archer studied a medical chart in front of him, "I think we're more alike than either of us would ever admit." Archer raised an eyebrow, glancing up from the paper. "You're delusional."